I married her as a shield, a contract, nothing more. She was supposed to be invisible, forgettable, just a name on paper while I protected the woman I truly cared about. But somewhere between the fake smiles and empty vows, something shifted. And now, I can't imagine my life without her. Before we dive into this story, if you love tales of unexpected romance and life-changing twists, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I never believed in love at first sight. Hell, I barely believed in love at all. When you build an empire from nothing, when you claw your way to the top of the business world before you're 30, romance becomes a luxury you can't afford. But protection, loyalty, those were currencies I understood. And that's exactly why I married Claire Bennett. Not for love, not for companionship, but to save someone else entirely. Let me back up. My name is Nathan Pierce, and by the time I was 32, I had everything most men dream about, a billion-dollar tech company. Mansions in 3 countries, cars that cost more than most people's homes. But none of that mattered when I got the call that changed everything. Isabella was in trouble. Real trouble. Isabella had been my best friend since we were kids. We grew up in the same broken neighborhood, shared the same dreams of escaping poverty, and watched each other's backs when no one else would. She was the sister I never had. When her father died 2 years ago, he left behind a mountain of debt to some very dangerous people. And the worst one of them all, a ruthless businessman named Vincent Cross, decided that Isabella would settle that debt by becoming his wife. I'd seen what Vincent did to people who crossed him. I'd watched him destroy companies, ruin families, and crush anyone who stood in his way. There was no way I was letting Isabella anywhere near that monster. My lawyers and I explored every option. Pay off the debt? Vincent didn't want money. He wanted control, and Isabella represented that legal action. He had judges in his pocket. Protection? He had connections that went deeper than I could fight directly. Then my attorney said something that seemed insane at first. If Isabella were already married or unavailable, Vincent would have to back off. He's all about appearances and legacy. He won't chase a woman who belongs to someone else. But Isabella wasn't seeing anyone. And that's when the idea hit me like a freight train. I could marry someone else, make it public, make it impossible for Vincent to claim Isabella without looking like a homewrecker, which would destroy his carefully crafted public image. It was perfect, cold, calculated, and perfectly legal. I just needed to find someone who would agree to be my wife on paper, someone who needed something badly enough to enter a loveless arrangement. That's when I found Claire. Her bookstore was 3 months from foreclosure. I'd done my research. Claire Bennett, 28 years old, had inherited a small bookstore from her grandmother. But when her father got sick last year, she drained every account, sold everything valuable, and maxed out every credit line to pay for his treatment. He'd passed away anyway. And now she was drowning in debt that would swallow her whole. The bookstore, the only thing she had left of her family, would be gone by spring. I showed up at her store on a Tuesday afternoon. It was small, cramped, and filled with the smell of old paper and vanilla candles. She was behind the counter, boxing up books with tears streaming down her face. She didn't notice me at first. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red and puffy, but there was something fierce in them, something that refused to give up even when the world was crushing her. "We're closed," she said, her voice rough. "I'm not here to buy a book," I replied. "I'm here to make you an offer." I laid it out plainly. Marry me for 2 years, live in my home but in separate quarters, attend events with me when necessary. In exchange, I'd pay off every cent of her debt and write her a check for $5 million when we divorced. The bookstore would be saved. Her future would be secure. All she had to do was sign the papers and play the part. She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Why would a billionaire need a fake wife? "That's not part of the deal," I said. "You don't ask questions. You just show up and play the role." I could see the war happening behind her eyes, pride versus desperation, dreams versus reality. Finally, she took a shaky breath and nodded. "Okay, but I have conditions. I want the bookstore renovation started immediately, and when this is over, We never speak again. Deal, I said. We got married at the courthouse the following week. No flowers, no music, just signatures on paper and a cold handshake afterward. I slid a diamond ring onto her finger that cost more than her entire bookstore, and she looked at it like it was a shackle. In a way, I suppose it was, for both of us. Claire moved into the east wing of my estate the next day. The house was massive enough that we could go days without seeing each other. I made sure she had everything she needed. Then I went back to my life. My real focus was on Isabella. With my very public marriage making headlines, Vincent had no choice but to back off. His pride wouldn't let him pursue a woman when everyone knew her brother figure had just gotten married. It worked. Isabella was safe. My job was done. But Claire, she was just supposed to exist in the background, a beautiful painting on the wall that no one really looked at. That was the plan anyway. The first crack in my carefully built wall came 3 weeks into our arrangement. I'd been working late in my study, buried in contracts and projections, when the power went out during a massive storm. The whole house went dark except for the emergency lights in the hallways. I made my way toward the kitchen to check the backup generator. When I saw her, Claire was curled up in the library, surrounded by candles, reading a worn paperback like the storm outside didn't exist. Her hair was tied up in a messy knot, and she wore an oversized sweater that swallowed her frame. She looked peaceful, real, not like the polished woman who stood beside me at charity galas, wearing designer dresses and fake smiles. "Power should be back in an hour," I said from the doorway. She jumped, nearly dropping her book. "You scared me." "Sorry." I don't know why I walked into the room instead of leaving. I don't know why I sat down in the chair across from her. "Can't sleep?" "I love storms," she said softly. "They make me feel small in a good way. Like my problems aren't as big as I think they are." I nodded, understanding that feeling more than she knew. We sat in silence for a while, and then I found myself asking, "What are you reading?" Her face lit up. For the next hour, she told me about the book, about her favorite authors, about how her grandmother used to read to her every night in that very bookstore she was fighting to save. I listened. Really listened. And somewhere in that candlelit library while the storm raged outside, Claire Bennett stopped being just a contract. She became a person. After that night, things shifted in small ways. I'd find myself taking breakfast in the dining room instead of my office, just to see if she'd be there. She started leaving me dinner on the nights I worked late, with little notes that said things like, "You need to eat," or "This won't taste good cold." We'd pass each other in hallways and exchange a few words that slowly turned into conversations. My mother's unexpected visit should have been a disaster. She showed up unannounced, desperate to meet the woman who'd finally tamed her workaholic son. I hadn't told my mother the truth about the arrangement. Claire could have exposed everything. Instead, she slipped into the role flawlessly. She laughed at my mother's stories, asked about family recipes, and held my hand across the dinner table like she'd done it 1,000 times before. When my mother hugged her goodbye and whispered, "You're perfect for him," I saw something flicker across Claire's face. Sadness, maybe, or longing. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way Claire's hand felt in mine, the way she smiled at my mother's jokes, the way she fit into my life like she'd always been there. The breaking point came at a business gala 2 months into our marriage. A competitor of mine, Gerald Stone, had always hated me. When he'd had too much to drink, he cornered Claire near the bar. I watched from across the room as he sneered at her, saying something that made her face go pale. I was moving before I realized what I was doing. "She's a gold digger, Pierce," Gerald slurred when I reached them. "Everyone knows you married some nobody to clean up your image. What did you promise her? A few million to play dress up." The rage that exploded in my chest shocked me. I grabbed Gerald by his jacket and shoved him against the wall. "You will apologize to my wife, or I will destroy everything you've built, every single thing." Security pulled me back before I could do something I'd regret, but the damage was done. Claire was staring at me with wide eyes, and Gerald was being escorted out. The entire gala had gone silent. In the car ride home, neither of us spoke. When we got to the house, Claire finally turned to me. "Why did you do that? He disrespected you." "But this isn't real, Nathan." Her voice cracked. I'm just the woman you're paying to wear your ring. Why do you care what he says? I didn't have an answer, or maybe I did, but I wasn't ready to admit it. The next few weeks were torture. I started noticing everything about Claire. The way she bit her lip when she was thinking, the sound of her laugh when she talked on the phone with her friends. The fact that she still visited her father's grave every Sunday with fresh flowers. I found myself making excuses to be near her. Working in the library when she was reading, asking her opinion on business decisions I'd normally make alone, taking her to dinners that weren't required by our contract. Isabella noticed. You talk about her constantly, she said one afternoon over coffee. I do not. Nathan, you just spent 20 minutes telling me about a conversation you had about books. You hate reading. She smiled knowingly. You're falling for her. That's insane. This is a business arrangement. Then why do you look at her like she's the only person in the room? I couldn't answer that. Because deep down, I knew Isabella was right. Somewhere between the fake marriage and the forced proximity, I'd fallen completely in love with my wife. The woman I'd married to protect someone else had become the most important person in my world. But I was terrified. What if she didn't feel the same? What if she still saw me as just the man who bought her cooperation? I'd built my entire empire on calculated risks. But this felt like jumping off a cliff with no guarantee of survival. The decision was taken out of my hands on a rainy Thursday evening. I was in Isabella's apartment, helping her move boxes because she was finally relocating to be with her actual boyfriend, a man she'd been seeing quietly for months. She was safe now, happy, free from Vincent's threats. I can't do this anymore, I told her, slumping onto her couch. Can't do what? Isabella asked. Keep pretending I don't have feelings for Claire. It's killing me, Bella. Every day I wake up in that house knowing she's just down the hall, and I can't tell her how I feel. I can't risk losing her by making this real. Isabella sat beside me. Then tell her, you idiot. What's the worst that could happen? She could leave. And if you don't tell her, she'll leave anyway when the contract ends. At least this way, you'll know. I drove home that night with my heart hammering in my chest, practicing what I'd say. But when I walked into the house, I found Claire in the bedroom we'd never shared, packing her clothes into suitcases. What are you doing? The words came out harsher than I intended. She didn't look at me. I'm leaving. I know you want to end this early. I overheard you today. My blood ran cold. What did you hear? You told Isabella you can't do this anymore. It's fine, Nathan. I understand. You don't need me to protect her now. The contract can be broken. I'll pay back the money over time. Stop. I crossed the room and grabbed her hands. Claire, look at me. She finally met my eyes and I saw tears streaming down her face. In that moment, I realized she wasn't just crying about the contract. She was crying because she thought I was sending her away. What I told Isabella, I said slowly, was that I can't keep pretending I don't have feelings for you. Not for her. For you, Claire. You. Her breath hitched. What? I married you for all the wrong reasons. To protect Isabella, to solve a problem, to check a box. But somewhere along the way, you became everything. The best part of my day is having coffee with you in the morning. I work from the library because I love hearing you hum while you read. I defend you at galas because the thought of anyone hurting you makes me insane. I cupped her face in my hands. I fell in love with you, Claire, completely, desperately. And I know this wasn't part of the deal, but I can't let you walk away without knowing the truth. She was full on sobbing now. You're an idiot, Nathan Pierce. My heart sank. I know, I'm sorry. I've been in love with you since the night of the storm. Since you sat with me in the library and listened to me ramble about books like it was the most important thing in the world. Every day has been torture. Knowing this ends. Knowing you'd never see me as anything more than a contract. I kissed her then. Pulled her against me and kissed her like I should have done months ago. She tasted like tears and hope, and everything I'd been too afraid to reach for. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. Marry me again, I whispered. For real this time. Not for protection or money or anything except the fact that I can't breathe right when you're not around. She laughed through her tears. We're already married, you idiot. Then let me take you on a real date. Let me court you the way I should have from the beginning. Let me earn this. She kissed me again, softer this time. Okay. We started over. I took her to dinner at a small Italian restaurant she loved. We went to bookstores and art galleries. I learned her favorite flower was peonies, that she was terrified of spiders, that she sang off-key in the shower. She learned that I took my coffee black because my mother couldn't afford sugar when I was young, that I was afraid of becoming my father, that I'd never believed I deserved happiness until I met her. 3 months later, I proposed for real. On the beach at sunset with a ring she actually chose. Not one I bought to make a statement. She said yes before I even finished asking. We got married again 6 months after that. A real wedding this time, with Isabella as a bridesmaid and my mother crying in the front row. Claire wore a dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a dream. And when she walked down that aisle toward me, I knew I was the luckiest man alive. The bookstore is thriving now. Claire runs it with a passion that inspires everyone around her. We live in that same house, but now we share the master bedroom. We have breakfast together every morning. We fight about stupid things like what to watch on TV. We laugh until we cry. We love each other with an intensity that still catches me off guard. People ask me all the time how I knew she was the one. The truth is, I didn't. I married her for all the wrong reasons. I kept her at arm's length because I was afraid. But love doesn't wait for perfect timing or ideal circumstances. Sometimes it sneaks up on you in the quiet moments. In candlelit libraries during storms, in the way someone leaves you dinner with a note, in the realization that the person you thought was temporary has become permanent in ways you never expected. I set out to protect someone I cared about, but in the end, Claire was the one who saved me. She taught me that love isn't a luxury or a weakness. It's the only thing that makes any of this worth it. And I thank God every day that I was smart enough to marry her, even if I was too stupid to know why at the time. So there you have it. A marriage that started as a lie became the truest thing in his life. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me, would you enter a marriage of convenience if it meant saving everything you loved? Subscribe for more stories that'll make you believe in unexpected love. I'll see you in the next one.